and not getting them correctly. So, want to let everybody know that. I will mess up names like no other. So, all right. Genikskin, the Rotenheskungen, and Ragenskins grew a lot rapidly. More and more guys were saying, quote, "This is what we've been waiting for. We're tired of talking. We want action. We want results." They were not looking for a war. They just wanted to do something. Instead of just saying, "Gee, I'd like to build a shed there." After year, finally you got tired of talking about it, and you get out there and build it. What we wanted to rebuild was the Confederacy. That's when we took over Moss Lake. Many people think that going back into the mountains and taking the land back was a new idea, but there was nothing new about it. As I said, back in the 1950s, my family tried to establish a new community in part of our ancestral homeland. After the eviction, there was a great division among the people of our community. There were people who supported the evictions and people who did not. They were at odds with each other, and it was a very volatile situation. The people of the Longhouse never intended to fight with their people. The Goranaro Hogogawa says that we should never spill each other's blood, no matter what. Either you go to council to discuss these things, or else you might be better off separating from each other for now and taking time to heal. To avoid a civil war in our community, we decided to leave and avoid that fight with people here. If we had to fight, we would fight our real enemy, the government. The Rotenhaskangen and the Regenishti started a plan of occupation of Moss Lake. We approached the council and the people to tell them what we wanted to do. We got the support of the people of the council of Gun Hakowishkian when our delegation went to Asawanagi. A meeting had been called for all the Mohawks. They came from Genishtish and Tangtaidinga and Gangkawangawi to, here we go again, the Ashkenazwi, the most central of all the communities. The project was put to everybody, and it got real strong support.
Driving me up a wall right now.
Was that
one word? There's only one thing you're driving me up a wall for, and it's because it's where I currently reside and my family is from. So I've said it multiple times, but it's okay. I'll tell you later how to say it. You're doing not bad. You're close, but you're not quite there. I'll give you that much.
Okay, I'm trying. It's not without trying. Everybody said it's about time. The council advised us to take it to the Grand Council of the Confederacy and offer to accompany us. The Grand Council also supported the project, but they were unable to sanction it. They wanted to know where the occupation would take place first. We said that for security reasons, we could not disclose that information, but that it would be on the Mohawk territory. They said, quote, "Well, until we know for sure, we won't be able to sanction it." End quote. We had to accept that. We knew that there were always informants, and if we let people know where we're going, they would be ready for it and try to stop us. One man insisted on knowing where we were planning on building our community. Quote, "I have a right to know," he said. So we told him, all right, we're going to take land in Vermont. 2 days later, it was on the news. Vermont had put 250 extra state police on the border patrol to watch the Vermont border. Now all the Grand Council people believed it would be in Vermont, and they could not sanction the move because it would have been on, oh my gosh, here we go, the Wampanoag territory. Wampanoag territory. Thank you. However, the camp near Moss Lake in the, oh gosh, here we go, the Adirondack. I can't say that word. Adirondack. That's right. We were heading in the reality. Where we were heading in reality was Mohawk land. On May 13th, 1974, we took over and called it Ganishkenan, meaning the land of the flint. At that moment, it became public knowledge where that land was. When searching for the land, we did not consider private land. Our fight was not with private citizens. It was with the American government. We looked for any land that belonged to the state and the government. Finally, we settled on the abandoned girls' camps where the Rockefellers, the Kennedys, and all those kinds of families used to go. They had closed it down, and then it was given to the state as parkland. And it was 612 acres. We took it, but not because we thought it was a ideal place to start a new life. It had water, much forest, and there was only one way in and one way out. We took it because it was defensible. We knew that our fighting tactics would require using the forest. We also know that they could not cut off our water supply since we had the lake. So we took it over. In the beginning, we got no opposition. The locals thought it was great since it would help tourism to have a bunch of indigenous doing indigenous dances and selling souvenirs. When they came and talked to us about it, we explained to them that we come from different walks of life. We are iron workers, farmers, school teachers, carpenters, but not a single one of us here comes from Hollywood. We are not performers. Nor will we dance nor perform for anyone. If you want to buy crafts, we can make some as a side thing, but we are not going to sing and dance for anybody. We told them we were there because we wanted to create a life and a future for our children. Our main objective was agriculture, the same way our people lived in the past. Then they changed their minds. Oh, we don't need that here. From then on, they went against what we were doing. They started to scare us by shooting at us. They shot at us 16 times before we ever retaliated. We tried to inform the U.S. government, the state of New York, and the local township, but nobody gave a damn. Militias were already in the area. They called themselves the Big Most People, end quote. There was the John Birch Society, the Minutemen, all kinds of redneck groups. They were recruiting people from all over New Hampshire and Massachusetts. They had meetings up at the Big Moose Inn. After they shot at us 16 times, our people decided it was enough. We decided that the next time they shot at us, we would return fire, shoot at their tires, shoot them, detain them, and call the cops to take away those goddamn troublemakers. One time, one of the cars that shot at us was fired back at. Then, when bullets strayed and ricocheted, you have no control. The ballistic reports at the time showed that the spare tire in the trunk was hit and a piece of the 22 caliber bullet that was fired broke off and hit a young girl who was sitting in the back. Her father, mother, and uncle all had their kids in the car when they passed and shot at our community in the dark. Nobody knew where there were kids in the car. Another time, some hoodlums attacked us and a bullet ricocheted and hit one of them. Nobody was killed, but they did need medical attention. The state police came with the federal government, stating that they had warrants and had to arrest somebody and press charges. Some guys wanted to turn themselves in to avoid our people from being attacked. Our people said, no, nobody. Either it's none of us or it's all of us. If they want this resolved, they have to do it in accordance with the two-row wampum agreement. It had to be dealt with nation to nation in a diplomatic way. Ford was the president of the United States at the time. They knew that there was no way that we could just give in. We had much support from the World Councils of Churches and the National Councils of Churches and the State Council of Churches and many different dioceses. What is that? Different dioceses? Dioceses? Dioceses. What is dioceses? We're about to look up a word, everybody. Wait, is someone in the queue? No one's in the queue. Now that I found out, it's diocese. We all know what a diocese is. He also had a lot of support from the countries worldwide: Italy, Finland, Sweden, Germany, and Egypt. The day we moved into Moss Lake, we sent guys to the United Nations in New York. We gave a package to everyone everywhere. We gave a package to every consulate in the UN telling them about our move. Our manifesto outlined the history of who we are. We put it on an international level from the start, so the United States could not black out what was going on, keep it isolated, and allow the mass murder to happen as they did at Wounded Knee. The governor did not want to end up like Rockefeller with Attica. We knew that he had to be more diplomatic. President Ford did not want to come across as a killer, so he appointed Forrest Gerald, a deputy minister of the Bureau of Indigenous Affairs, to resolve the situation. The agreement said that either the president or somebody specially appointed by him would look into the matter and see that the peace was kept. That was the first time in over followed the two-row wampum. We had that happening. What's the wampum? What's the two-row wampum?
Two-row wampum is a treaty that was made with the Haudenosaunee, Mohawk, and the United States government. But a wampum itself is how we keep track of our treaties. It's done with beadings, specifically with specific shells that we bead into a wampum belt. Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that. President Ford admitted that the two-row wampum was still in effect and that the indigenous canoe was independent from the settler ship. Nobody has followed it since. In any case, at that time, before the agreement was completed, the United States had to provide compensations for what had been done to us, for all the violent attacks we had been subjected to ever since we set up our encampments at Moss Lake. That is what the treaty says. If they, meaning the outside authorities, ever find that their people are in the wrong, they have to deal with them. If the people did something wrong, if the local people had been attacking us, it was only because the federal state
and the local governments did nothing to stop them. They encouraged these people to feel that they had a freedom to shoot at indigenous people. They never compensated Ganeshkini. Is that the word? The Ganeshki. I can't say it. For what happened, but the fact that they had to follow the two-row wampum meant a lot more because a president was established. Relocation. After 3 years of being in those mountains under siege, finally we said, quote, okay, we've accomplished what we set out to do, end quote. At first, we had taken over 612 acres, and when we left, we had 1,200 acres. We kept taking more and more land, and nobody could stop us. However, we realized that our project would not work there because it was in the middle of the snow belt. It had an abridged growing season, and acid rain was starting to kill the trees and poison the lake. We told the government we planned to move to another part of our land. We were not relinquishing our claim to anything. Just because we are not occupying the land does not mean that it is no longer our people's homeland. We decided we would move up closer to Ganawaki, Ganawaki at Minor Lake. The state tried to negotiate with us. They were trying to get us to settle on the land and that did not belong to the Mohawks as the Wandes traditionally claimed it. Ooh. We told the Wandes about the land that had been offered to us as a replacement for Moss Lake, letting them know that there was land available where there to move to if they would like to. The state said, quote, it's the only land available. We fed all our information into our computer. That's what it gave us. Louis Hall replied, well, maybe if you tell us, feed our information into the computer, it will tell you there are 9 million acres of uninhabited Mohawk land. In the end, we just told them that we were moving one way or another. Quote, you can cooperate with us, but if you don't, we're moving away. If you want to fight us, go ahead. Let us fight. It's nothing to us. We ended up taking over I think the Schuyler Falls and Minor Lake. We told them afterwards that we would continue to acquire land and that they would automatically fall into the jurisdictions of the territory of Gananishke, the Mohawk Nation, and the Iroquois Confederacy. That was our objective, to enlarge the domain of the Mohawk people and the Iroquois Confederacy. There were a lot of meetings and negotiations. Finally, the state offered to help us with the finances. They said they would give us money and provide us with trailers. We said, no, the only thing we want from you is to leave us the hell alone. We took on the renovation of all the old buildings. We pulled out all the nails and everything, and we just got help from everyday American people. I remember some guy who had a tractor trailer. He came and offered it to us, drove it in, and we loaded all our lumber on it. Then he drove it all up to Altona for us, where we unloaded all of it and recycled the lumber to build our first homes. And here we go. I can't say this word, Ratish Shagan Rangeshti and AIM. Sorry. There are so many events in that short period from 1970 to 1980. A so-called Okra crisis in 1990 was one result of...
It's Oka. It's Oka.
I said it right. Okay, cool. I said it right the first time. Crisis in 1990 was one result of all those things that had happened during that period. Wounded Knee, Moss Lake, and Fort... Oh, that almost looks like Kansas, but it's not. Ganasakarangan. Hope I got that right. In 1979, when we drove the police force out of I can't say it. Can you say that word? It's AKY. Asani. I think that's the word that you're talking about that I keep messing up.
Are you talking about? Let me double check to see if I know which word you're talking about. Hold on.
Yeah, AKWES. Yeah. Aquanaski. Asconaski. Yes. Asconaski. Yes. Sorry.
Yeah, that's the one I keep getting irritated that you're messing up. If it's the one I spelled in the comments down there, yeah, it's Asconaski.
Asquanaski. I'll probably mess it up some more. I'm so sorry. Asquanaski. The people here always heard about these things. They knew we were from this community, and we were key players in all the events. When the Asquanaski sent out a cry for help in 1979, many people who had never really been involved suddenly joined us. As a people, we look out for each other. Back in the 1970s, when the James Bay project was going on, the Crees came here and asked us to protest in Montreal. A few of us attended. We carried a big drum, sang, and led the procession against Hydro-Quebec. We have always been willing to help our people across North America. Many started to look at Wineski was a community that will always defend itself and take a stand. And I guess that's when, like, regionally it doesn't matter what region you're in, because yeah, that makes sense. Us white people were like, nah, that's your state to fuck with. Indigenous people are like, nope, we're here to help. The Rotenhanaskin and the Rangashti had duties. We never initiated the conflicts. The only thing we initiated was going back to the mountains and taking over Moss Lake, which we called Ganeshkin. However, we did not do it on our own. We went to all the people and our local council, and then to the national meeting of the Mohawks, then to the Grand Council of the Iroquois Confederacy. We had the support of everyone. We also contacted Native people from across North Turtle Island, and everybody was supportive. Only then did we make our move. Moss Lake was the only time the Rotenhanaskin and the Rangeshni never initiated anything on their own. Everything else, such as the eviction, had been decided by the people. They asked us if we would support it, and we said, if this is what the people decide, we support what you decide. If you compare the Rontenhaskangen and the Rankanheshti, you keep doing it different times in different ways, to the American Indigenous Movement, AIM, you will see that we are more oriented towards building the community. AIM was an organization and was not representing itself as a people. They did not have a constitution as we had. The people of Ganesh got along very well with AIM. Whether we agreed with their philosophy or not, AIM was very respectful to the Ganeshgani because they took action and accomplished a lot, whereas the rest of the Iroquois Confederacy was doing nothing. The people of AIM were also action people. They were at Wounded Knee. Just before we took over Ganeshginash, and they knew many of us from being in Wudani. Vermin Bellacourt had the respect for us, and Dennis Banks too. We did not always agree with them, but our respect was mutual. AIM was trying to become part of the UN as a non-governmental organization, NGO, but we did not want any part of NGO status. We wanted to be recognized as a people. When we visited the UN, we reminded them that the Constitution of the Iroquois Confederacy, the Great Law of Peace, was the cornerstone of world peace. Our confederacy was the first example of a League of Nations on the planet. People like, oh my gosh, here we go. Tecumseh, Tecumseh.
I'm gonna say the names for you.
Huh?
Those are the names I'm not gonna say for you.
Okay, yeah. And the Pontic were part of the Confederation. The Algonquins, I can't say that, Algonquins had their own confederacy for thousands of years. There were many confederations where here in the Americas. Historically, we all had alliances of some kind with our nation. The Iroquois stood out because of our Constitution, the Great Law of Peace. But we were not different from other confederacy of the native peoples. The fact that we had this Constitution encouraged us as the Mohawk Warrior Society to take a different route. We did not impose the Great Law of Peace on anyone. The only thing we did was to encourage other nations to stop fighting and to stop the wars. There is no reason people should lose their fathers, husbands, children, and other loved ones because of war. Everyone has the right to live. I like that. So like lots of confederacies, they already had coalitions and stuff before the colonizers. They're already doing the shit that we were trying to fight for. Huh. Jesus. Financing and solidarity. By 1986, the large cigarette trade was starting on the south side of imaginary lines. In the U.S., native peoples also had casinos and gas stations, but nothing was happening in the north. We were always talking about developing an economy, but we lacked the resources to do it. We said, well, this business does not seem to be so hard. Why don't we start generating an income to help our people? With that money, we could build a flea market, acquire some land, buy farm equipment, and all sorts of things. So we started selling cigarettes from the back of a pickup truck. The Gon Hanuskoi. That was the beginning of our new economy. The cigarette trade helped fund the building of the bingo hall. We were able to support the hospitals by purchasing a new heart machine. We bought trays and utensils for the inpatient elders. We helped finance various sports and activities in the community. We even bought a new Zamboni for the arena. At first, some people didn't want to take our money. They said, oh, that's blood money. But we were not the mafia going around breaking legs to make money. Some of the people who criticized us back then got rich from the businesses we started. The band councils, the police force, they all ended up getting their share in some business. Meanwhile, the people who started the businesses are no longer part of it. Growing the businesses from scratch was not about a few individuals getting rich off of it. That was not why we started selling cigarettes in the first place. We wanted to build financial self-sufficiency as a community, not to get rich. We helped our brothers and sisters from other territories, from British Columbia and across the prairies, when they needed it. At that time, we bought grain and hay during the drought of Western Canada. Canada subsidized the white farmers and ranchers, but did not subsidize the natives, of course. Since there was no drought here, we transported it by rail to Saskatchewan, to Chief Louis Tepote. Tepote? Taypota? Tepote? I think so. He was a rancher and a farmer himself, and was chief of the council here. He knew who needed help, so he left it in the hands to hand out as needed. Also, when the women of British Columbia needed help with drug issues their children were experiencing, we helped out. These mothers established. They're doing very parallel things like the Black Panther. Yeah, this is so parallel to Black Panthers and reading about the Black Panthers, what they did for communities. I love this. These mothers established summer camps for their youth, which we financed. Their 4-week camp sessions helped those mothers establish stronger and healthier relationships with their children. We also financed sports teams, including Vancouver's North Shore lacrosse team. We did many good things in the 1980s and the 1990s. They called us when the Quebec Environmental Police raided the, all right, here we go, the Mungcombekwi People's Territory over the salmon issue. We immediately told the Quebec government that if the abuse of those people did not stop, then we would take whatever action we had to stop them. Quebec did not want Mohawks to get into this fight because they're probably scared of them. They often sent delegations of Mohawk Warrior Society to help with the native struggle. When the Oka crisis was going on in 1990, in 1990, some of our people were dispatched over there, but we shut down the bridge, roads, and passes as a community. Later, the Wandesa in Ontario took action on their own. They had all these infrastructures passing through their communities, power lines, Highway 401. So they could. Is 401 the Trail of Tears, the Highway of Tears? Now the Highway of Tears, that one road.
I'm sorry, I was spacing out. What did you say, ask?
Is the Highway 401, is that the Highway of Tears? Because we read a book called Highway of Tears. Okay, thank you. So they could easily disrupt everything. Canada started panicking when it understood what all other native peoples and their allies could do. They knew there is no way to control us. They had no foresight when they put a bridge, a canal, railroad, and power lines on our land. They cannot babysit all that stuff. Every single one of our communities is full of infrastructure, and the invaders made themselves vulnerable, and they constantly underestimated us. They thought, quote, "Oh, there are only 100 people there, and they are finished," end quote. But we were everywhere. It only takes one person cause significant infrastructure damage. We could go in any direction within 200 miles radius of their precious infrastructure and find something to destroy in any native territory. I went to New Brunswick for the fish fighting. We have been to Maine and Washington State as well. It was with Mike Chosa and his people when they took over that park in Chicago. We have been all over Turtle Island. The people are always happy when the Mohawks show up because we bring the great law of peace with us. It encouraged people to know that they have a family if somebody does something wrong to their people. That's awesome. I wish we had that sense of community and stuff like that. You know? There was also Gun No Hashkashtantan and the Clandonia next to Oweshigan. Our guides were up there all the time and brought the knowledge back to that community about the Great Law of Peace, which helped to repower the women. Today, the women up there are very powerful. Back in the 1920s, it was people from there who came here and reintroduced the Great Law of Peace to us. And almost 100 years later, we are the ones going up there to bring it back to them. There is always someone retaining the traditions and keeping the people strong. A reporter interviewed me for the Tungawanaskigan newspaper in, here we go again, Owashawangan, and asked me many questions about the Great Law of Peace. She asked, "Where did you learn all this stuff?" I said, "From here." She said, "From here? I've lived here all my life. I've never heard this stuff." I explained to her how the Great Law of Peace. People had to go underground for a long time. They did not have to go underground out there in the Owasangan, because it was established by Joseph Brant, who was a loyalist close to the Anglican Church. They did not come under pressure the same way we did. They were able to maintain the songs, ceremonies, and dances. They brought back the Great Law of Peace to us in the 1920s and helped us reestablish our lighthouses, our longhouses, our councils, and our way of performing condolences. Often people take for granted what somebody else will be there carrying on these things. Everybody is waiting for somebody else to carry forth this knowledge, but it has to be done. When we visit our communities to assist them in their struggles, we brought our experience and knowledge and the land defenders. We never told them what to do. We explained what we did in the past, what worked and what didn't work. They asked us to set up a communication centers because we had vast experience. This is how we helped get the word out. The people are really grateful for what we did. It is our job and a responsibility to keep the Great Law of Peace alive. And I don't believe my job is to be a title holder. My job is to help to keep our way of life, to be a reminder rather than a teacher, to help to remind our people that nothing is lost. The only thing that's lost with many of our people is our memory. They didn't like us. Oh, they didn't like us? What it means to be a warrior. Hey, Zane. Hey, Zaid. I can't say your name. Zane. I was 20 years old when I started experiencing fear. I was a warrior, according to what my understanding of a warrior was. We were getting ready to fight with the SQ and the army. I was, if necessary, up in Ganhangawaskin, and I was more than ready. For what I remember, there was not an ounce of fear in me. As I walked into the cookhouse, there I saw my father and my uncles, men I looked up to all my life as being fearless. I saw them and they were puking. They were sitting there like they were going to die. I asked my grandmother what was wrong with them. She said that they are afraid. I kind of laughed because in my mind these guys had no fear. When she said, quote, "They're not afraid of fighting. They're afraid that if they go off to fight and if they won't return, no one will take care of their families." That's a good fear. That's when it hit me. I was a single guy. I had no children. I had nobody to be concerned about but myself. I thought I was being responsible, but I did not know what responsibility really was because I had nobody who depended upon me. If I was gone, no child would starve, no woman would be husbandless. That is when I learned that what fear is. It was nothing to do with the fighting. It is about the responsibility that the decisions you make may affect the lives of others. A lot of people today want to call themselves warriors, but they don't know what a warrior is. I would say I don't. They think that being a warrior is wearing a tattoo or a jacket with the unity flag on their back. They think that it's about carrying an AK-47, putting a mask and camouflage on. They think that that is what makes them a warrior, but that has nothing to do with it. Being a warrior is about taking responsibilities for our family and for the earth. When people say, quote, "I'm ready to die," my reaction is that we won't need you in that case. Dead men don't accomplish anything. We need men who want to live, because they are the ones who are ready to take responsibility. They are the ones who are willing to help with the survival of our people. Any unintelligent can die, but to live is a great responsibility. And that's the end of section 1, it looks like. Well, now we're on someone else's interviewing.
Do you want me to do the notes at the end when you get to them, or do you want me not to worry about it?
Let's not worry about the notes.
Okay.
Okay, let's go on. Gangan Waringarang Quran interview. I don't know how to say. After traveling throughout North America as an... Wait, is this the same? No, this isn't it. Okay, yeah. This is a different person, huh? Okay. Traveling throughout North America as an ironworker and a construction foreman, building bridges in high-rise buildings. See, the KW completely ruins me. And the K is a G. And I keep going Sego. So I go, go, Gungaran. Art Monitor was appointed by clan mothers to become a moderator, negotiator, and spokesman for the Mohawk Warrior Society. During the reoccupation of Ginageshkin, an influent speaker of his native language and well-versed in I can't say it. Amidst violate situation, he was part of the Mohawk Warrior Society delegation to the United Nations in 1977 and was involved in the Ranquet Point standoff. And oh my gosh, it's your Askanaski.
Thank you.
In 1979. I don't want to make you mad, I promise. In 1997.
You're not making me mad. It's just where I am at, and it's where my people, specifically of the Mohawk, are at. So it's just, that's the only one I'm getting like a twitch every time you say it wrong.
Yeah. Can you say it one more time? Askanaski. I'll try. In 1977, he helped organize Native resistance in New York State taxation of gas and cigarettes in the Onondaga territory. Onondaga territory. The Karan passed away in 2017. Living behind 59 grandchildren and 36 great-grandchildren. Dang! Very, very. Origins. My name is... Can you say his name, or you're not allowed to say his name? Probably not allowed to, huh? Say go. Karan. Also known as Art Montour. I am a Mohawk. Here we go again. Ganeshki Khan. I'm originally from. Here we go again. Here we go. Say go Hanawanaski near Montreal. I was born and raised there. My grandparents on my mother's side were Longhouse people, and my grandfather was a Ronira of the Bear Clan. For the Bear Clan, sorry. He was what they would call a war chief at the time. At the age of 17, I left to go to New York to be an ironworker. I remember stopping after work in the evening at the bar where all the Mohawk and natives used to go. Some reporters came in and wanted to know what we thought about what was going on in Wounded Knee, and whether we agreed with it or not. I was listening to everyone doing their interviews. I realized there was such a lack of knowledge about what was going on and what it all meant. It was before I became involved, so it really sparked my attention. I was very interested, but I felt like I had to learn more. I had to come back to Gun Kawaneshki for health reasons in 1973. And there were a lot of things happening there politically. There were two sides to it, as always. There was the band council side, which was the same as the colonial government, and there was the traditional side. And I went back and forth between the two sides to see what.
Clarify, we still to this day don't respect anything the band council says. It's people that are usually indigenous from other nations that do the bidding of the colonial government.
Are those what I would call the compradors?
Yes.
Okay. Band councils, compradors, got it. So the traditionalist side is the side. Okay, traditional side. Okay. I went back and forth between the two sides to see what each had to say and to see if I was going to support one side or the other. He did investigation, like we always should do. Investigation, the right to speak, right? I was very impressed with the arguments of the traditional people. This is when the people were starting to become aware of the Mohawk Warrior Society. The Mohawk Warrior Society, they explained, the great law of the
Great Law of Peace.
The Great Law of Peace. I didn't want to say it twice. I wanted to try and do it to me. I was reinstated into the Great Law of Peace during the Harvest Festival and became an activist. I have been with the traditional people ever since. I had known Louis Hall since I was a child. He was a well-known figure in the community, always talking about the Great Law of Peace. As for the Warrior Society, it really began with, here we go, the Tengerano Tekganish, who was really very young at the time, around 16 or 17 years old. Along with others, he had four. Oh, I gotta do a puzzle piece. Hold on, sorry. We're puzzle time, everybody. Just so they know I'm a human. All right. Along with others, he had formed a singing group where they were trying to learn all the old songs and bring them back to the community. They had been attending all the longhouse meetings, hearings, and elders talking about the Great Law of Peace, about who we are and how sovereign we are. They realized that what they were hearing was not consistent with the way things were organized in Hanawaski at the time. So they wanted to form a group, the Mohawk Warrior Society. It's an all-encompassing word in our language. It doesn't just mean warriors, but it also means husband, father, grandfather, uncle, nephew, and so forth. It includes all men, the everyday person, just as much as the Oh my gosh, here we go. The Rotia Nerashan Louis Hall, who had done a lot of studying, suggesting using the term warrior society because of the fear it would cause the people opposing them. They still call themselves warriors, the Mohawk Warrior Society, but when they spoke it in English, they would say the Warrior Society. They were just a small group of young men, almost boys. They decided that they wanted to reform the Mohawk Warrior Society, so they came to a council meeting and asked the elders. One of the elders was Teragarano Takeshi's grandfather, Hanoaganis Louis Daibo, who was the chief of the Bear Clan. He requested to be sanctioned by the council, and Tigorono Gutski's grandfather replied that you don't need to ask for sanctions. You are already part of the Great Law of Peace, the Great Law. You have a very important place, and we will support you in our reformation of the Mohawk Warrior Society. So that's how, in modern times, it came back together. It came back less that then a year before I became involved. So I became part of the original Mohawk Warrior Society, but I was older at that time. I had just turned 31. Many young men joined it, and Louis Hall had been studying and learning about the Great Law of Peace and the warriors, and that their duties and functions were, and what their duties and functions were. He helped the group to really know who they were, what they were, why they were, how they fit into everything. He had an excellent understanding of what the warriors were. He was very instrumental in the warriors being reconstituted according to the original ways of the original purpose. We have tried to maintain the same impulse ever since. There are a lot of misconceptions about the warriors, many of which are intentional. The Ganetkin, the evictions of the Ganhanawaki brought the Warrior Society to the forefront in 1973. He heard about it so quickly. Whenever there's an action in any of our communities, members of other communities come out and support. The next thing you know, we were Warrior Society throughout Mohawk territory, when throughout the Confederacy and beyond. You could hear about Warrior Society all the way from East Coast to the West Coast. There were many conflicts between the band council people and the traditional people, but the majority of the community ended up siding with the traditional people. We felt that if we stayed in Ganhanaweski and wanted to continue with our line of thinking, we would probably just end up fighting among ourselves. It would have been native against native, and that wasn't feasible. We talked about going back to the Mohawk River Valley or somewhere within the Mohawk territory that was unceded. That's how we ended up at Moss Lake. We went there to promote the Great Law of Peace and our traditional way of life. We decided before we went there that there would be no electricity. We were not against electricity, but if we had electricity in there, then the government could just conveniently shut it off and make us suffer. Good point. Being in the mountains, there was no running water. We had to get spring water and carry it into the house. We decided to have wood stoves for heating. We brought our children in right from day one and decided that they would get their education from Native people. People in the 70s and the 80s came too. People came as families. None of us considered it as an occupation. It was a reposition of what had always been ours. Repossession. There we go. Once people grew aware of what we were doing, they wanted to know more about it. That's how the word of what we were doing spread beyond Mohawk communities. In fact, the initial group that went to Moss Lake included can you tell when I'm coming to the names? The Hanaskis, the Wendes, the Onondagas, the Kavangas, the Senecas, and the Tarascarasaras. Sorry. All 6 nations had some presence there, and almost immediately...
Tuscaroras, by the way.
Tuscaroras, thank you. All 6 nations had some presence there, and almost immediately had the presence of young people from other indigenous nations, both from Canada and the United States. Moss Lake was a cross-section of all North America. People from Ganesh would go and participate in other people's movements all the time. It was taken for granted that people were going to show up from all the different communities. That probably influenced Louis Hall when he created the unity flag, which displays the profile of a native person, a profile that all native people can relate to. And this, we're going to redo it again. I already got a picture of it, but just in case some people didn't see it, we're going to look at it again. That is the unity flag that he's talking about. There we go. Very important. Behind that profile is the sun. And behind the sun, the background is red. Because we are properly known as the color red. At that time. It became a huge symbol. I remember when Louis Hall presented it to the group inside Moss Lake. He said that the single eagle feather represented the unity of all native people throughout North, Central, and South America. He also noted that the feather was standing up because in some cultures, the feather facing downward is a sign of defeat. The sun was also a symbol that all native people looked up to. It represented good energy, strength, and power. A lot of thought and discussion went into creating the philosophy of our group. Our main objective was to return to our land, to live as traditionally as we could, and to follow and promote the great law of peace. Living in a simple type of life could have easily happened, but New York State didn't want it to happen. There was nothing but talk about eliminating us, annihilating us. Living in a natural and traditional lifestyle is what we all wanted, but it became very difficult, virtually impossible for some people to let it happen. We did not plan to go there to get into a conflict. In fact, we made sure that the location where we would set up our camp would not be on private land, but New York State land. We figured that it would help us avoid conflict. We knew what it was like to be displaced. We didn't want to evict anybody. We have them turn against us. But it still ended up going that way. The state's plan was that if we didn't voluntarily leave on our own, they would go in there and wipe us out. In fact, one of the state troopers, who was commander at the time, Major Bob Charlan, testified later in the federal courts that he was given instructions to go in and use all violent force to remove the people. Then he looked right at the judge and said, including the use of flamethrowers. Can you believe that? They knew they were men, women, children, and even newborn babies there. It was a real revelation when he said that in federal court. Yet the people that lived in the rest of the state became very supportive of us over time. In addition, all the churches that supported us, there was a support group called RAIN, Rights of American Indigenous Now. People brought us supplies, food, clothing, and whatever essentials we needed. It was a harsh winter climate there. People said that we wouldn't make it to winter, then that we wouldn't make it to fall, then to spring. They stopped saying that after about 6 months. Life inside the encampment was good. We really enjoyed it. It was chosen I was chosen as a spokesperson. I had to travel to a lot. I ended up speaking at many colleges, universities, and high schools, doing interviews. That was very helpful in getting the main and maintaining support for us. As one of the spokesmen, I listened to everyone's concern. I tried to take them all into account when I spoke in public. I remained a spokesman through the whole thing. My grandfather was a good speaker, so I probably inherited it from him. I spoke right off the bat. I spoke well right off the bat. Within the first week or so, people approached me about talking to the news people. I was learning fast. In our ways, we always give credit to the spirits of our ancestors. So I gave credit to my grandfather, who helped me understand many things I didn't know. Tobacco and gaming. My family and I moved to your favorite Asawanaski.
Hey, you're getting better at it. Askanaski.
In 1948, I did it backwards. In 1984, the conflict on gaming in Asquanaski happened in 1989. I was involved in it from the beginning. The media turned it into a conflict about gaming, but that was not really the issue. There was much propaganda to support the idea that we were just greedy businessmen, but I was part of it. The casinos are not what I was fighting for at the beginning. My involvement had to do with jurisdiction and the issues of our sovereignty. Those opposed to gaming were so small in number that they had very little influence in the community. So they went to the Canadian government and Canada banned the Canadian Band Council, the American Tribal Council, and the New York State for support. Since the conflict was happening on the so-called American side, the New York State tried to claim jurisdiction, but they knew that they would have to force their way into it because New York State has no right over Mohawk territories. Neither does the federal government. But they have might and violent force if necessary. So the small anti-casino group turned to them and created their own warrior society with the state police, the sheriff department, federal marshals, and national guards. Ugh, why would they do that? They reached out to all the forces of the enemy could muster. Being Mohawk, people involved in the band and tribal councils had grown up always believing those police forces were the enemy. But suddenly they were reaching out to them. Journalists made up the idea that it was a civil war. But you cannot call it a civil war when a group in a community stands up for its territories against soldiers from foreign countries. We call that an invasion. For our part, we stayed internal. We didn't reach outside. We didn't reach out to outside forces, only to our own people. Again, my part in it had to do with our sovereignty and jurisdictions over our own lands. If you're not supportive of gaming, then you don't have to participate in it. If you're not supportive of gaming, then you can if you're supportive of gaming, then you can take part in it. If you're neutral, then you can stay neutral. Tobacco trade was also part of the controversy at the time. It was new. The New York State said that it was illegal for Native people to sell tobacco without charging New York State sales taxes. It was it was the same thing with the gasoline. The state said that we could not sell gasoline unless we followed their rules. But because we never relinquished our sovereignty, they knew that they could never convince the entire community to follow their rules. From our point of view, the trade had nothing to do with smuggling. We merely transported tobacco from the southern to the northern portions of our territory. We knew it wasn't wrong or illegal. We were just exercising our sovereignty. The cigarettes were purchased, not stolen. We purchased them and resold them with a profit. People that supported the band council were also imposed to the tobacco trade. Within the Longhouse, there were those who were fully supportive of the Great Law of Peace, but there were also a few supporters of the Handsome Lake religion who strongly opposed gaming and gambling as a matter of faith. Can I ask you what your take on the gaming and stuff is? Or you were the people that are neutral or for it or against it?
I see both sides of it.
Oh, okay, I get it now. That's how gaming became an issue with the Longhouse. There was a real split. We had to decide whether we would remain within the law of great peace, or give ourselves to Handsome Lake religious cult. Yet the vast majority of people in Aquanaski did not side with the Longhouse, Handsome Lake, or the band council. We could never learn later that those who said they were opposed to gambling actually just wanted it for themselves. They must have felt that the people who had started the casinos had beaten them to the punch. They don't talk about anything more, as many of them ended up working at the big casino that the tribal council now controls. It was mostly the religious people of Lake House, of Handsome Lakers, as we call them, who were sincere in their opposition to gambling because their religion told them it was forbidden. However, I've spoken to many of them since then, and most of them agree that their opposition was a mistake since tobacco brought so much economic benefit to this community. Once they realized that, many of them dropped their opposition and began working in casinos themselves. That's been the story since 1989. Many who were opposed to the casinos and gasoline industry embraced them today, buying gasoline for shelter for settlers when you can get it in your own community or pay less. I don't have any animosity against the anti-casino people today. I realize that a lot of them revised their outlook on thinking, and hopefully they can prevent some unnecessary future conflicts. The Mohawk Warrior Society, Longhouse, and Aquanacy represents the real spirit of the Law of Great Peace as it was established by, oh my gosh, here we go, the Wanda, I can't say it, the Peacemaker. The Great Law of Peace is based on...
That would be the reason I don't teach you how to say that name correctly, because I've told you many times I'll never say the Peacemaker's real name.
Okay. Yeah, that's right. It makes no exception. It has no dispute. It makes one big circle, because we've always been free people, free thinkers. Each of us has a mind that can think for itself. You can pass all the laws you want, but you cannot stop us. The fire where we have our councils is right inside each one of us. Culturally, it's really a spark, not a fire. When the spark from each individual human being are put together and kindled by collecting their thoughts together, then they make a fire. I can't say it. We still put our sparks together here, according to our culture. The fire comes. We collect the thoughts together to make a fire. The people who have left our Mohawk Warrior Society, Longhouse, and built another fire are free to do so. They have absolute freedom. That's why there's no civil war here. One side can say that what they want if they want to, but on our side, we have the great law of peace. We have to follow it. If we stray from that, we are violating ourselves. We continue to live life as, here we go. Every time I hear it, K. The Ganeshki people who continue our festivals, marriages, wakes for people who have passed on, baby naming, ceremonies, social dances and gatherings. Life has always been the way for us, even going back 5 or 10,000 years. We merely continue the spirit of life here. That is where our spark, where our fire comes from. It's indivisible. Even though they have always tried to divide and conquer us, they never succeeded. I was physically imprisoned, but they never imprisoned my mind. That's what they said on the day of my sentencing. You can imprison me. You can take my body, but you can't imprison my mind. My mind will always be free. What time is it? All right, good. We got 20 minutes. Next person. Next interview. And here we go. Wish me luck. The Ganesarkazaren interview. Lauren Thompson was born to a Ronera father and a Loconer mother. He spent his youth traveling between Aquanasi. Did I do it right this time? Aquanasi? I did it right? The various... Asquanaski. Why do I keep doing it? Asquanaski. Construction sites where he worked as an iron worker on bridges and high-rise buildings for over 40 years. After becoming a council member representing the Bear Clan in 1974, he found himself at the forefront of local resistance efforts directed against the erection of a fence around Asquanazi in 1979. As a result of the Grand Council's decision, his house at Wenquet Point was designated as the headquarters for that resistance, and his property became the site of an armed siege on the part of local anti-warrior vigilantes and New York State troopers. At least that lasted for 2 years in 1990. The Kenner Sarakskin was chosen to lead the delegation sent by Genhastika Mohawk territory, as it was being surrounded by the Canadian Army, to negotiate a peaceful resolution to the Oka crisis, wherein he earned his nickname Warrior General. Man, the indigenous people, they don't care. They don't care if you're a fucking military force or nothing. They're like, nope, fuck you. We're fighting. You can fuck off. I love, like, we don't get that much.
We don't care if we have pew-pews. We'll just grab chair legs.
We'll figure it out. Because, yeah, you guys, like we're gonna learn guerrilla warfare tactics from you. I fear, from everybody. This is what's gonna happen. They're gonna have like white people that come in the coalition, and we're gonna be a part of this protected people's war and guerrilla warfare tactics, and we're gonna be learning from the Mohawk Warrior Society and on the guerrilla warfare tactics and shit. Watch. Our people have gone through centuries of oppression. All the trauma that people go through winds up in the DNA. So our DNA is full of problems. Wait, let me read this. Our people have gone through centuries of oppression. All the traumas that people go through winds up in the DNA. So our DNA is full of problems and issues that will be carried into the next generation. That's what we are living through. It's being a struggle all the way. Way back, the people told the explorers to go out and look for land, but there were people on the land. The Pope said, quote, they're not people like us. They live like animals in the woods. Fuck you. So they have no souls, and they don't have any title to their land. That gave the explorers and the new people coming into our land the right to just do as they pleased. It gave them the right to shoot us like other animals, which they did. They had no second thought about it. In growing, they just got rid of all the native people that were in the way. There used to be millions of us. When explorers first got here, the ocean shorelines were covered with campfires. In our language, we understand what we are as a person. Our soul, hunhunets, as being a spark. O Tasire. This spark is what gives you life. When one sits down with a person to talk about issues, our language says that their spark have come together and made a small fire. When the clan discusses its issues, it creates a clan fire. When the nation talks about its issues, it's a national fire. When the Grand Council has its meeting, it's a call for big fire. The law of great peace. Is very different from what the English language suggests by saying Grand Council. When the peacemaker made the longhouse, he called it, here we go, Gan Nun Hasana Owenwi, and the one real house. He explained that the house extends from where the sun comes up to where it goes down. The length of its roof is the sky. The Mother Earth is the floor. To this day, the longhouse has remained within our circle Wampanoag. Oh my gosh, here's a huge word. Ti ton gun haweski han kanantan is encircled by two interwoven strings. One string represents the law of great peace, and the other one represents the four ceremonies, while the people are understood to be contained inside both of these circles. If people leave the circle, they lose their voice and can no longer speak on either traditional or political issues. That's what we're living through right now, as many Native people changed their status and exited our circles by accepting European laws. The Iroquois Confederacy was the first one to deal with those settlers on a political level. We taught them how to govern themselves. They're saying they taught the settlers how to govern themselves, right?
Correct.
Thought so. They didn't know how to be free because they came from monarchies, but our people taught them. In teaching them, they put their government together. They taught them how to unite their 13 colonies instead of keeping them separated. But they stayed monarchies in many ways. They attacked our people instead of returning the favor. It all goes back to square one. The first settlers wanted to get land from us, but the Iroquois never wanted to sell land. Since they could not deal with the Mohawks in this neck of the woods on the land issue, they went to the individuals in different communities that were Christian and made arguments with those converts who had abandoned our circles. That's how we lost 9 million acres of our land. When they have us file land claims today, they're only trying to legalize and legitimize illegal land thefts that took place a long time ago, thinking we've forgotten about it. As the original people of this land, we permitted non-indigenous people to live on our land, but we never allowed them to control it. We gave them permission to live here on the condition that they would govern themselves. We would govern our own people, and if conflicts happened between us, we would sit down together to see how we would deal with it. But we would be the ones judging our people, and they would judge their own people. That was the original agreement that we made with the first settlers through the Toihati, the two-row wampum. According to the Toihati, the settlers had to keep all their language and culture on their own ship and leave us to lead our own way of life on our canoes. But the colonial governments never stopped trying to assimilate us into their society. They never stopped trying to assert their authority over our territories. Both our fathers and my mothers, both my father and my mother, were really active in holding on to and promoting our traditional values. I came into the world in that environment. We had a big family, and when I was really young, we had 5 huge gardens. We had cows and horses and chickens. So we were always busy working. As we grew up, whenever people came, we always opened the house, letting them stay a couple of nights. They all sat downstairs in the living room, talking about our rights, our historical agreements, our issues with the courts, and other problems of the day. They would talk all night and would go to sleep in the stairway trying to listen. My father was a little hard of hearing, so he talked loud, which made the rest of them talk loud as well. So I had a pretty good understanding of what was going on. Whenever we went to the longhouse for ceremonies, for meetings and gatherings, my parents always made sure that we sat and listened. You know what? As a person that's learning about all these things, one of the things that helps me to make sure that I'm like solidifying the things I learn is by having these discussions. I would love this to go and like let's say we talk about and we learn about something, we come together. It'd be great to do this, you know? To come together and have many people talk about the many things and stuff like that. To have long discussions about things that really matter, you know? That's how I grew up, watching the longhouse issues take place. I was absorbed in them. My father didn't want his children to have anything whatsoever to do with any kind of religion. He didn't want us to learn anything about European religious values. What we had to learn was our own culture. When I got older, I started working in construction, traveling to different cities, and observing what was going on there. I got married a year after I graduated. I concentrated on working full time. I went to work in Virginia and I got hurt down there. So I moved back home on disability leave. That's when one day people showed up down the river at my father's driveway. 3 people came knocking on the door. They called me out of my house and encouraged me to get involved in what was happening at the longhouse. They were starting a, quote, warrior society, as they called it, and they needed to get the longhouse up and actively moving again. It wasn't doing anything special at the time, so I started to hang out with them, and I gradually understood what was going on. There was always a pocket of traditional-minded people around, at one time they had to go underground because they were so oppressed. But once the community started to sympathize with the positions they took on different issues, they slowly became strong again. I was too shy to stand up and say or do anything publicly back then, so I just sat and listened. The North American Indigenous Traveling College in Cornwall Island offered me a job where I would travel to different universities and colleges and talk to students. I learned quite a few things from Longhouse people who were part of the same traveling trope, especially from Jake Thomas, who was a Six Nation and who was in charge of reciting the Great Law of Peace at the Longhouse. One day, a Bear Clan meeting was called. They had a vacant position in the clan, and they wanted my brother to fill it. But my brother said that he was not interested in becoming a chief. So they looked at me and I told them, I don't know anything, but if you want to take a chance with me, I'll try to help I'll try to help you with what I know. That sounds kind of like me. They were fine with that, so they put me in the position. Land claims were becoming a really important issue in the Asquanasi at the time. The Iroquois Confederacy was discussing the matter, and I was listening to their debates. We were discussing the treaty signed in 1996 between the United States and the Seven Nations of Canada to delimit the lands belonging to the Mohawks in Asquanasi, which they called St. Regis back then. The Seven Nations of Canada were Christianized, and the treaty was not agreed upon by the real Iroquois Confederacy, so it was an illegal treaty. But in 1796, agreement was largely than the reservation land. It included nearby towns like see, I can't even say the English words. New York, which is just next to my family's property. Afterwards, New York State had purchased more of our land inside the tract, and that was contested. It was in the middle of these discussions that the St. Regis Tribal Council suddenly decided to put a fence around the reservation using a grant from the federal government. I saw that if they put a fence around Asquanasi, it would limit our land claim to small territory of the reservation, and I did not agree with the idea of reservation or with limiting our territories and our land claims to their narrow borders. So I told the tribal council that when they got to my home in Renquet Point, they could not go any further, as they had no right to be on that land, which belonged to my family, which did not recognize their jurisdictions and their boundaries. I'm going to look ahead just real quick. I'm on page 74. Just going to look ahead. Okay, 74. Okay, we're going to finish it up to 77, 74. So, 74. All right. Around that time, my friend Joe Swamp and I were working on a building outside one day, when we suddenly heard chainsaws. I said, quote, boy, what, that sounds really, really close. Let's go check it out. We took the tractor and a trailer and went down there. We stumbled on really young kids, all 18 or 19 years old, who were cutting down trees on the 6-foot path to put up fence there. I asked them, what are you doing? You've come too far. We told you that you cannot come into our family's land. Where's your boss? One of them answered, oh, he's not here right now. I said, but you're doing damage. I'm going to have to confiscate all your equipment. It was perfect for them. It was perfect for them since they didn't want to work. So they all started running around picking up their chainsaws and equipment to help us put them in the trailer. I put it all inside a garage at home and went back to my business. There was a small police force on the reservation at the time, quote, indigenous police, end quote, as they were called. The chief of police was my next door neighbor. He lived in a trailer right next to my house. I guess they found him drinking at a bar and put him in they put him in his uniform. Anyways, he showed up with another guy asking about all the equipment. I told him what had happened. I told him I did not steal the equipment. I just seized it because they were doing damage on my family's land. He asked to see the equipment. So I said, sure, it's all in the garage. They looked at it and left. Later that evening, I was babysitting my 2 kids, and that cop came back, this time with a state trooper and a guy from the Bureau of Criminal Investigation. And they said they had a warrant for my arrest. I said, for what? You have no authority here. They said they were arresting me for theft, and they tried to take me in. A fight started. The state trooper got aggressive and tried to grab me. I started wrestling in the kitchen while the kids were standing in the archway. The troop got me in the corner. I had long hair, so when he grabbed me by my hair, I told him, I am not going to walk out. So if you're going to take me out, you're going to have to kidnap me. I went limp, and they had to carry me out of my house. They took me to Malone, a city nearby. I had to spend the night there. The next morning, my wife brought me back home, and the longhouse meeting was called. It was jam-packed outside. Even outside, it was full of people, all wondering what was going on. Longhouse people were really angry about what had happened. We convinced the Iroquois Confederacy to have a meeting in the Asquenazi. Keep messing it up. So everybody here could understand what was going on. In that Grand Council meeting, it was decided that we would have to get rid of the police because they were getting too strong as a colonial government agency in our territory. People got up and walked straight to the tribal council building, while others shut the roads down to make sure the police could not get in. When we got there, the tribal council came to the door, and the Asquenazi police chief, Harris Cole, stood there. He told them that we were there to disarm their police force. We told them that we were there to disarm their police force. A big fight broke out with the tribal councilors, the police, and their supporters. After the incident, 40 sealed indictments were issued. Even those on the council didn't know if they were on the list. So the decision was made that we would need to stick together in one place and to be protected from the outside. So they came to my place at the Requet Point. They said it was a good place to stay as it was next to the river, which would help in case of police in case the police blocked the roads to stop our food supplies from coming in. The road were barricaded with trenches right into the ground for over a year, and all traffic coming was closed right off. When it became public that they were going to stop all food from coming in, everybody in the area started bringing us food by boats, so we never ran out of food. One day in August, they suddenly told us, quote, we're going to give you 10 minutes and we're coming in. They were all lined up on the road up the hill. I had binoculars and I saw them with with their helicopter flying around. They said, quote, give up your weapons and come out. You have 2 minutes. Then you have 1 minute. But then they didn't They did nothing. They postponed it. We had bunkers all over the place, all the way around the tree line, and there were tents all over. They called it Camp Ganassarankan, and that's my indigenous name. We had security patrolling different areas. At one point, they caught state troopers crawling on the ground trying to sneak in. Our guy said, "You're surrounded. Stand up. Put your hands up." And they obeyed. They were shaking. We said, "Take your gun belts off. Turn around and walk back." That became a big thing because they had their guns now. We had their guns now. So negotiations took place to get their guns back. We didn't want trouble, so we gave them back. A month later, Jesus, while it was happening, we had no idea how long it would go on. We got rough lumber and we built a place to house most of the people that were there. The basement of my house was just filled with people. We had 3-tier bunks. Everybody was packed there. We stayed right here. We never moved, and we ended up winning the battle without even setting foot in court. They had no jurisdictions over us. It was the same when it was the same. What's up?
That was a good stopping point.
I'm almost there. It's not too far, I promise. It was the same when the taxes went really high for cigarettes. Later, see, I have one more page to go. Later, in 1980s, the tobacco became an industry that allowed our people to put food on the table. They thought I thought I was involved in what they referred to as, quote, smuggling cigarettes. Back then, but I answered, "What do you mean? How can I smuggle cigarettes if I stay in my indigenous territory all along?" But the tribal and band councils always opposed it because they wanted to collect taxes on the businesses. This is what has always been going on here. When they built the seaways here in Askonasi, the tribal and band councils wanted it to happen because they would get money out of it. It wasn't a lot of money. Today, we'd laugh at it, but the traditional people had trouble fighting against it because they didn't have any money. They didn't have any media power. So they were always presented as the bad guys because the government put out propaganda against the traditional people. The governments only follow the interests of the corporations, which have the money to sway the politicians. They called it lobbying, but it's just the almighty dollar. They always have to keep making more and more. You see, this river they call the St. Lawrence. It's beautiful. But back in the 1980s, it was a lot better. General Motors, a neighbor right here, they're responsible for so much pollution. They dumped lots of polycarbonates, biphenyl, PCB, underneath the hill and put grass on top of it. But it's so deep that they kept finding PCBs 60 feet below. There was a lot of stuff below from there dumped into our family property. They started churning this black oil up out of the ground, and it smelled kind of good. And a lot of local kids would go in and walk through the dump. We had no idea what it was back then. My brother and sister-in-law took them to court. They were very active in making sure General Motors is held responsible for what they did. My sister-in-law found out that the pollution coming from the PCBs is directly related to high blood pressure and diabetes. And this place was overturned with those things. It's just an epidemic. Here in Askonasi, they lied to us. Left and right. You cannot drink the water here. People get cancer from it all the time. They wanted to put an incinerator up here too. It seems like they want to bring pollution from all over the world and burn it right here. But we won't let that happen. Mother Earth is getting great day in and day out. It's just going to get worse before it gets better, because there will always want to be more natural resources than what Mother Earth can handle. All nationalities are going to suffer because of that, not just the indigenous people. Non-native people should understand that when we are fighting for our rights, we are also fighting for their rights. Most non-natives in North America don't know what freedom is. That's true. They have to get up in the morning and go to work. They have a leash. But the only true freedom is when you can let nature support you. The European understanding is that the sovereign is the individual holding the crown, and not the people. In our understanding, each and every one of us holds the sovereignty of our people. To be sovereign requires peace. Seganin, in our language, whose root is slow. Peace requires to think slow, to keep cool, not to go off and create a war situation. That is our responsibility. And then we'll start with the other interview tomorrow.
With that being said, I wanted to give you this analogy. So, Longhouse Council, which you hear a lot, equals sovereignty of indigenous laws. So they follow the great law of peace. Then you have the Tribal Council, which is a political interface. So it's what a political standpoint that works within the system. The Band Council equals colonial administration. So that's the three councils that you always hear about. The Longhouse Council is the one that I refer back to, which is the one that follows the great law of peace. The Tribal Council is the one that does political interface. And then the Band Council is the one that is imposed by the colonial administration.
Okay, cool. Thank you. We ended on page 78. On 78. And it's another interview of the, I'm going to try this, Aturan Gnatigan interview. Oh. This is like what it's doing, and it's forcing me to sound out things. So this is going to give me great experience. Maybe my pronunciation will become better after this book. Who knows?
Possibly.
Yeah. But after that interview, we're going to be on part 3, Rethinking Resistance. Go ahead.
I want to talk about the book that we read. I'm ready for that part.
Sure.
Okay, so like I noticed a couple of things. Like after we got done reading, I looked at the cover again, and I noticed that the feather is up in the cover, and they mentioned that when the feather is down, it means defeat. And so like I caught that. And then I learned a lot of things today.
Do you see the thing that's around the character's waist on the background? That's a wampum belt.
Wait, what? What is?
That's a wampum belt. You see, not the cloth piece, but the part that goes around the sides of it. A wampum belt is that. Now it's made out of specific shells that are only indigenous to the area that we live in. These shells are either white or purple.
That's interesting. What's the color significance?
That's why we have our colors being purple and white, because of those shells. They're culturally significant to our people.
That makes a lot of sense. Well,
Their history on the belts. They did the history, they did the treaties, they did a bunch of stuff on belts.
We did everything on our wampum belts. Histories, treaties, stories, everything was on wampum belts. Yep. Our written history was on wampum belts.
Now, I don't know if you can answer this question, but when they say reciting, because I looked at the Great Law of Peace, it's about hundreds of pages long. When they mean that they repeat the Great Law of Peace, do they actually read the whole thing, or?
Yeah, they read the whole thing.
Wow, I want to know how long that takes.
To be able to memorize and keep the Great Law of Peace, if you memorize all of the Great Law of Peace and able to recite it without looking at a reference, you will be gifted a Great Law of Peace wampum belt. It's one of the greatest honors for the Haudenosaunee.
Oh my God, that reminds me of something. Did Boy Scouts expropriate indigenous traditions? When they achieve something, they get a little thing on their belt.
Oh yeah, all the time. Like the whole entire concept of the Boy Scouts is just appropriation of indigenous culture across the board. Like the person that literally came up with the concept of the Boy Scouts literally said that he was worshiping like indigenous culture and was going to use it to make people understand the indigenous ways. But really what he was doing was just expropriating indigenous culture.
Wow. Now that I know that, fuck the Girl Scouts and the Boy Scouts. Ugh. All right. Does anybody else have any more questions and stuff like this? Any at all?
I will put out here though. So we also see this today a lot with the way things are moved within a political scheme. You'll see a majority of the people that are falling under the Great Law of Peace, which are the Longhouse Council, will tell you that the Haudenosaunee are communist, and they actually read communist theory, where you'll see the people that are of the Band Council, they try to justify capitalism and will like appease to colonialism.
Oh, wow. So, okay.
And then the tribal council have this tendency to be anarchists. So,
oh, wow.
Just putting it up.
Huh. Okay. That's amazing, honestly. What's up, Dooley?
Yeah, I was just gonna say that, I made the mistake of thinking that it was common knowledge that the Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts were like a fetishization and mockery of indigenous practices and also like literally just child labor.
The thing is I didn't make that connection until the description of the belt.
No, I know. I'm critiquing myself.
No. I'm not critiquing you or anything. I'm just saying like that fucking like hit home with me as soon as like it was described and explained to me. And I'm like, my brain went, holy shit. I know it's like an obvious, but to me it was like an epiphany.
Nothing is obvious to everyone. There's no such thing as common sense.
All right then. So I guess we have next is going to be a podcast by Red Nation, and we're doing. What are the things we're doing on that? Oh, there we go. I know you can't come up. I did it by accident. Sorry.
That's the wampum belt you get if you can recite the Great Law of Peace without a reference. This is the Great Law of Peace wampum belt.
And the Great Law of Peace is what, like over like 600 to 800 pages, right?
Yes. That's what our actual symbol on our flag represents, is the Great Law of Peace.
Wow. Jeez. That's much studying. That's like studying like trying to study well, I don't know, like how do people like are people is it like an easy read or is it a difficult, what's the reading level of that book?
It's, I would say, not an easy read.
I kind of figured it wouldn't be. Would it be like us reading Das Kapital?
Kind of.
Okay. But better. But better.
I was about to say it's more culturally connected than Das Kapital.
Well, no. I was comparing it to like the difficulties and some of the things and not understanding what some of the things are being said in it. That's all. You know?
Yeah, I understand that.
Some of the things you would read, though, you'd be like, why did they leave this out? Like, a lot of the things you're going to read in there are going to be like, why in the hell would they ever leave all this out?
Yeah.
Like, why would they take it?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. All right, then. I'm assuming that you're going to go live and do the.
Oh, yeah, you were asking what the topics are today.
Yeah.
So the topics today are we will go over the book. Red Nation does a podcast going over the book Settlers, which I think we'll start with that one. And then the second one will be a two video parter, which is Blue Cats Are Not Indigenous.
Okay. All right. Well, that sounds good. I'm going to go feed Rufus. Hopefully he'll eat. And I'll head on over there. You guys probably start about an hour or so, right?
Actually, probably sooner than that, I would think. Chickie's been popping in and out, so it means Chickie's awake.
Okay. All right. All right, then. If no one else has anything to say, I'm going to go ahead and close it down. Thank you, everybody. Forgive me for my reading. Forgive me for my reading.